So here we are. We're less than 2 weeks out from the trade deadline. And I figured this might be a good time to discuss the state of the Canadian hockey teams. Now, last summer, I did a state of Canadian hockey teams video, and I got ripped pretty good by fans of Ottawa for my statement that Ottawa didn't really have a superstar player outside of Erik Karlsson, that their forwards were unremarkable, and that I felt they had a pretty average team and that they would probably fall out of the race in the East. I was wrong. In terms of if I had to say which team looks like they're in the best position going forward, probably these guys. But Ottawa's probably second. The thing with Ottawa is they seem to have one good year and one bad year. And this is the good year. I've got a book here, the guide and record book from this year. I mean, it's fascinating when you look at Ottawa. Because, yeah, you can't predict from one year to the next what they're going to do. 2009, they're out of the playoffs with 83 points. 2010, they're in the playoffs with 94 points. 2011, they're out of the playoffs with 74 points. 2012, they're in the playoffs with 92. 2013, in a lockout-shortened season, they're in the playoffs with 56. 2014, they're out of the playoffs with 88. 2015, they're in the playoffs with 99 points. 2016, they're out of the playoffs with 85 points. And it looks like this year they'll be in the playoffs with the point total in the mid-90s. I don't know if they're a contender, though. That's the thing. Would anybody be surprised if they lose in the first round? They lost in the first round. 1, 2, 3, 4. They've lost in the first round 4 of the last 5 times they've been in the playoffs. The only time they made it out of the first round was in 2013. They made it to the second round by beating Montreal. I can't help but smile. That series was, it was amazing. It was fantastic. But that's where we're at with Ottawa. So Ottawa's got a very serviceable team. They're good. They've got a lot of depth, and I stand by I don't see them having like any kind of a Patrick Kane forward, any kind of a Crosby, Malkin, any of those superstar, Tarasenko. I don't see them having a star forward. And yet they're paying Bobby Ryan like he's a star forward. But he's been good at both ends of the ice, and there's some debate on how well he's playing. So Ottawa is an interesting story, and the addition of Condon and then the Anderson with his wife storyline, they're in good shape. So going into the deadline, I don't expect Ottawa to make any big moves. I think the Wingels move is probably the one I think they just stopped there. Toronto. I always have Leafs fans saying, what do you think we should do? Okay, so maybe depth on the blue line. I think picking up Marchenko off waivers was a start, but obviously that's not the end of it. Probably add a defenseman and add a fourth-line center, and that's it. It's done. Because the thing is, you don't want to go out and mortgage anything from this team. The Leafs are right now the team that's building itself into contendership the fastest. Oh, I can hear the Montreal fans. I know, guys. I know you're leading the division. I know you're number 1. But there's been a malaise. And that malaise now appears to have been fixed by firing Michel Therrien again to replace him with Claude Julien again. So, twice now, Michel Therrien has been fired in favor of Claude Julien. I would think at this point that if Michel Therrien ever gets interviewed for a job in Montreal again, that he would just, it would have to be a last resort. Therien's coaching record isn't bad, but it's not great either. And it's worthy of note here that he was fired in 08-09 by Pittsburgh. And that was the year they went on and won the Stanley Cup. And he had problems in Pittsburgh, too. And they won the Cup after he left. So does Montreal win the Cup after Julien takes over? No, I don't see it. And you know, Habs fans get upset with me for mentioning Carey Price having a down year. He's having a down year, and the Habs can't afford it. See, for Price, for Price and for the Canadiens to be a contender, Price has to be a goaltender with a save percentage of like .930. He has to be Superman because Montreal doesn't have the offensive weapons and they don't have the roster necessary to contend if their goaltending is average. And Carey Price has been relatively average this year overall. He started the season way up here. Then he had a period where he was down here, and now he's he's moseying along. He can turn it on. I'm not trying to say that Carey Price isn't capable of having a 20-game period between now and the playoffs where he's lights out, gets 5 shutouts, and makes us forget all about the downtime. But right now, for where he is and for the stats he's putting up, an average goalie. And Montreal can't go anywhere with average goaltending, especially considering if they get first place in their division, they have to play the number 1 wild card, which would be a Metro team. The Metro division, they're all playing playoff hockey right now. Columbus has started to get it into gear with the overtime win over Pittsburgh. Bobrovsky's cranking it up again, and Columbus needs that. But I don't like Montreal's odds against any of those 4 teams. If Washington collapsed and dropped to 4th and they were the number 1 wild card, I think they'd kill Montreal. Pittsburgh, I even think Columbus would take out Montreal. So Montreal's in an interesting place because when they traded out PK Subban for Shea Weber, they were trading out a few years in favor of we're going to win now. And there's some debate about whether or not they're winning now. And that's why Duchesne is so hot and in Montreal circles, because they need Duchesne. They absolutely need Matt Duchesne or Gabriel Landeskog or any piece they can add. They need it desperately. And they need it more than Toronto or Ottawa do. Toronto and Ottawa, I think, should both be quite happy with what they have. Whether they make or don't make the playoffs, they should be happy with what they have and where they are. And Ottawa will make it. Toronto, it's kind of a, if they can stay ahead of the teams behind them, if they can make enough headway to perhaps bust Boston out of that number 3 spot. But it's tricky. Now out west, these guys. I don't know what you do with Winnipeg. And I didn't have a clue last summer when I talked about Winnipeg either. And I took some flack when I compared them to the Thrashers. But they're still the Thrashers. The Thrashers did this every year. They just sort of meander around, and there were reasons to feel like they could get better. For most of their time, they had Kovalchuk, damn good center, or damn good winger, who had very good goal totals, and they had a decent blue line, and their goaltending was iffy, and they just couldn't get it together. And Winnipeg has done basically the same thing. And I don't know what you fix. Like, people ask me, well, who should they trade? I have no idea. You can't trade Bufflin. He's your number 1 blue liner. You don't just trade those guys because you can't get one back. You're not trading Scheifele. You're not trading Ehlers. You're definitely not trading Laine. Nobody's ever going to trade Laine. I don't think they trade Little. So the core, as underwhelming as it is, it stays together. And I don't know what you do about it. I don't know how you fix it. So if any Winnipeg fans have an idea, by all means in the comments below, let me know what you do, because I don't know how you fix this. Coming into this year, I was like, if they can just get decent goaltending, ditch Pavlich. And they did. They did. They ditched Pavlich. And their goaltending didn't get better. Hellebuck has not been an improvement. Winnipeg cannot count on their goaltender giving them that save when they need it. The Prairies. Calgary, I don't know how you fix Calgary either. Johnny Gaudreau is fucking miserable. Gaudreau is miserable. That holdout, I don't know if it's a holdout that did it or if it's Gulletson, but he's miserable. And believe me, you can't keep things on an even keel when your superstar player is miserable. And the guy who pays for that's always the coach. It's not like they're going to trade Gaudreau. Johnny's not going anywhere. You're not trading Monahan. You're not trading Bennett. Bennett's heading down here. You're not trading Bennett. You're not trading Dougie Hamilton. I will be very absolutely bloody gobsmacked if Calgary trades Dougie Hamilton. Even though Brian Burke's denied it, which means it's going to happen. But I can't see it. Giordano's not going anywhere. Brody's not going anywhere. See the thing? Calgary and Winnipeg are in very similar spots. They're not quite... Like, Calgary's in a better position to make the playoffs. Absolutely. But with all this chaos, is there any chance they put together a string if they do make the playoffs? Johnson looked great early in the season. And Elliott looked bad. Now Elliott looks better, and Johnson has been iffy his last half dozen games. So what do? Who's your starter? Johnson is not a 50-game-a-year goaltender. But there's some debatable whether Elliott is either. So then you go up north a little bit and you look at the Oilers. Well, Talbot's been fantastic. The McDavid line's been lights out, no matter who's on it. Maroon's been a steal. Eberle's had his struggles. But I think Nugent Hopkins has come into his own this year as a two-way center. Draisaitl has looked fantastic. Their blue line, as maligned as it is, has been much better than people report it as. And I think it's funny because there are a lot of people who want to discredit Edmonton and Toronto for everything they've done. You mentioned Edmonton's in the playoffs. That's just because of Talbot and McDavid. So, take Kane and Crawford out of the Blackhawks and tell me how they do. Take Ovechkin and Holtby out of Washington. Tell me how well they're doing. Take Crosby and Murray out of Pittsburgh. I could go on and on and on. You're going to hurt those teams. Yeah, sure. Pittsburgh and Washington probably are still playoff teams, but where are they? And if you say, well, they wouldn't be where they are, then your argument of McDavid and Talbot is ridiculous, because here's the thing. McDavid's fantastic, but his point totals, while he's leading the league, for the most part, until Crosby decides he's just stealing that scoring title, his point totals aren't outrageously high. It's not like he's scoring 2 points a game and dragging the Oilers. There have been plenty of games I've watched the Oilers win where Crosby's a part of it, but he's not the main cog. He's not the main reason they win the game. And then after the game, people say, oh, they're just winning because of Crosby. And then if Crosby's not on the score sheet, they go, it's just Talbot. It's not, though. It's more than that. And I say that as a guy, I don't cheer for Edmonton. I don't have a reason to have, I don't have a horse in this fight. I just watch the games and go, I wouldn't want to play Edmonton right now. And, yeah, I think the Oilers are in a very good spot right now. And in terms of, so at the deadline, Winnipeg needs to sell somebody. I don't know who you sell. Stafford? Does anybody want Stafford? I know Winnipeg doesn't want Stafford. Does anybody want Stafford? No. Pavlich? No. So Calgary, what's Calgary do? Are you buyers? Are you sellers? Are you sticking? Do you just keep everything the same and hope everything gets fixed? Do you try for Ben Bishop to see if that'll right things? Does Tampa even consider getting rid of Bishop right now? Where's Tampa at? Are Tampa sellers? Are they buyers? What's going on? In Edmonton, what do you do? Who does it? Who's the one that goes? Who's the one that comes in? And what change do you make to that lineup? Do they need a defenseman? Probably. But so do 29 other teams. Could they use more depth up front? Probably. So do 29 other teams. Well, no, 28, because Pittsburgh's just always got more and more guys to bring up. They just farm them. I think their farm club is fantastic. Whatever Pittsburgh does to develop players, every team in the league needs to take a look right now and go, okay, this is how you do it. So it's a tricky deadline. Now, Vancouver. So, Canuck fans, at the start of the year, you got a 4-game winning streak, and I got a lot of flack on my channel about how Vancouver was 4-0, and was I going to admit that we were a playoff team? And I said, no. Leave me alone. Every time the Canucks scored in overtime, I went, shit. And everyone's like, don't you want them to win? And I'm like, yes, but I'm going to get hassled because this is just raising everybody's expectations too high. They're not a good team. They don't have talent. And when I watched them in Pittsburgh the other night, my God, they were trying. Brendan Gaunce tries his ass off out there, but he is not an NHL-level puck handler. He is not an NHL-level shooter. He has the heart and the desire. He is a lion. But Brendan Gaunce is not really designed for today's NHL. He just can't. You can't have a guy in your top on your top 4 lines now that has no puck skill. You can't. And then they brought in Magna, and they brought in Skilly and Chaput, and all 3 of these guys have put in a lot of effort for Vancouver, and they've bled for the team, and they've given every single ounce of sweat and tears they have to leave on the ice. And I give them full credit for their efforts. Lucas Biza as well. For all the crap he's taken from Canuck fans and just hockey fans in general for his contract, he's earned it this year. He's been very good. But none of these guys have the talent needed to make you a playoff team. The Sedins have fallen apart badly this year. Badly. And a month ago, when anybody said to me, do you think this is the Sedins last year? I was like, no, this isn't the Sedins last year. How the hell, why would they're not going to stop playing now. They've got at least another year. And with the way things have been lately, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know if the Sedins will be back next year. Because Daniel has completely lost it in terms of his shooting, and his confidence in his shot is gone. To the point where Henrik is probably going to beat him in goal scoring. And what do you do? Well, I'll say this much. If the Sedins retire this year, they weren't 35 or over when they signed their contract. So that frees up $14 million in cap space next year. If, let's just say the Sedins retire at the end of this year. I'm just going to throw that out there. Let's just say Henrik and Daniel say it's been fun. We're tired. We're done. We're ready to move on. We're going to go home and play for Moto for 2 years, but we're going to retire at the NHL level. The Canucks then have $14 million in cap space. It's a lot. It's not a good year for free agents. So it doesn't get spent in unrestricted free agency. I hope to God it doesn't get spent in unrestricted free agency. Last time the Canucks had a lot of cap space, and I was all salivating over it, we had a GM named Mike Gillis who decided, hey, I'll give $10 million a year to Matt Sundin. It's like, wait, what? No, use that $10 million and sign 3 guys for $3 million each. You come out $1 million ahead. You get 3 forwards instead of 1. Because the Canucks needed depth that year. But he decided, I'm going to throw it all at Sundin. And even Sundin looked at that money and went, what? No, I don't deserve that. And signed for less than that. And just think back, how many times has a player ever looked at a contract and went, you want to give me what? No! You're crazy! I'm going to talk you down. That doesn't happen. But Matt Sundin, being the ambassador for the game that he is, and being as fantastic a guy as he is, made it happen. So, I'm on the fence. I'd like to see the Sedins come back for like a farewell tour next year. I'd like to see Daniel get 1,000 points. But I really salivate over the idea of a $14 million freeing up under the cap. And the Sedins at this point are not who they used to be. And it's been shocking watching. They can still pass like crazy, but their speed is pretty low right now, and their finishing just isn't there. And Louis Eriksson has not had the. I said all last summer, people are counting on Louis Eriksson to have this great chemistry with the Canucks, and because he's played with the Sedins internationally, and that's not the same thing. That's the Matthias Weinhandel argument all over again. And ask anybody from the Canucks forum, from CDC, how that ends up. Matthias Weinhandel had tremendous chemistry with the Sedins internationally. Doesn't mean it would have worked at the NHL level. But there was one person in particular that constantly wanted to see it. So it's an interesting time for Canadian teams. The ones that are in the best spot are Ottawa, Toronto, and Edmonton. Because they're able to have a mix of players right now, and they have enough young star players and young players coming up that they're in really good shape. Calgary, I don't know what they have. They have young players who should be playing better than they are, and I look at the coach a lot, but I don't think they're going to fire him. And Edmonton, being so close by and seeing what they've done, it has to be frustrating for a Flames fan. And for Jets fans, 2 years ago, it was all the rage to talk about how the Jets are going to be on this great run, and there's a fantastic team, and oh, look out, they've finally made the playoffs, and big, tough team, and who's going to stop them? Now they stopped themselves. And Canucks are just Canucks. And Montreal, I've discussed Montreal. And as much as Montreal fans hate to hear it comes down to Carey Price, a lot of it does. A lot of it comes down to Carey Price. Because that's how it works in the NHL. Your starter is a big part of your game. That's why Pittsburgh ended up winning a Stanley Cup with Matt Murray, even when Marc-Andre Fleury was good to go. Because Matt Murray was a better goaltender. And I argued about that during the playoffs last year on YouTube. There'll be a lot of arguments in this year's playoffs. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're on your way through. And enjoy Hockey Day in Canada. In 2 minutes, the first game for Canadian team starts. And I'm going to watch as much Hockey Day in Canada as I can before I head to the Vancouver Giants game tonight. The Giants are playing, I believe it's Red Deer. Yvonne won the tickets, so I'm going to go. I wasn't that excited because I was really hoping to stream the Canucks and the Flames tonight, or some game tonight. But you know, I'll put aside a stream for today in order to go to the game tonight and hopefully enjoy it. The Vancouver Giants are pretty bad. I'll watch Tyroning for sure. I'll bring my phone along. I don't think I will be able to do any kind of videoing because I don't know what the rules are with that, and I don't want to post something on here and then have the Western Hockey League or the Vancouver Giants saying, hey, that's not cool. That's our footage. So I have to be careful. Not to mention they'd be playing copyrighted music all the time, and I get all kinds of copyright flags on my video. So there's that too. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to y'all again soon. And enjoy Hockey Day in Canada.